Hey everybody, it's Honest or Nighttime. I believe one of DBD's biggest problems is the lack of a competitive mode. Over the years, I've learned to not take DBD as serious, and even begun to dismiss it as a kind of chaotic, arcade-like experience. The shift is not just an attitude problem that I use to cope when I'm having a bad session against competent Swift groups, but it highlights an underlying design problem. When a game does not have a clearly defined competitive structure, everything from the core game systems to balance tweaks becomes a lot harder to evaluate. And a lack of competitive mode really highlights a range of issues that I feel like should be addressed, especially 10 years later. Firstly, from the get-go, players are entering matches with a range of expectations. I would say most are looking to win, which we'll get into what that means in a sec, while also having fun. Their efforts vary from sweaty meta builds to trying to make a meme build work. I would call this group of players the normal majority. However, there's also a small subset of players that queue up for DBD without wanting to play the intended gameplay loop. Some players just queue to complete challenges and don't care if they lose or if they or their teammates die, or if they even participate in the match. You also get people in lower MMR that don't understand that DBD isn't an immersive hide-and-seek type game. By separating into a ranked and casual game mode, players better know what to expect going in. Playing Survivor with randoms might feel less of a gamble, and behavior might be able to get accurate input for balancing. Secondly, DBD has never established their win condition. By having a win condition, you have an objective measure of who performed well in the match, and at first it sounds simple. Killers win when they kill, survivors when they survive. However, being an asymmetrical horror game, it carries a lot of nuance. This is something that's been present in DBD since time immemorial, and to be fair to behavior, it's hard to quantify. In this game, even by winning, there's a spectrum of events that occur in a match that players could either be rewarded or punished more for. Should a killer that hooks survivors 10 times but 2 end up escaping be valued equally to one that hooks each survivor once but proxy camped and had each survivor dead on their first hook? The classic kills versus hooks debate. Should a survivor that had impactful game-changing plays but end up dying in the end be valued equally to another that hid for most of the match but escaped via hatch? We currently have a pip system that attempts to touch on these different aspects. Throughout a season, if you perform well enough in matches, you technically hit higher survivor and killer ranks, but in my opinion it feels less like a true rank and show of skill due to how easy it is to pip and more of a measure of how much you played at that time. It's a system that can be improved. I think most would agree that consistent good plays throughout a match should be rewarded more than just the end result, which is why it's currently demonstrated in receiving more blood points per category at the end of the match. But is this an accurate telling of the match, and is the reward for the other end of the spectrum too low? If a group of survivors gen rush and make it out, or if a killer kills everybody quickly, they tend to get a measly amount of blood points, and it feels like a small deterrent from doing your job right. In a way, you're punished for winning. One fix I think there should be is some sort of snowball multiplier that applies when the match suddenly sways heavily in one side's favor. For example, mobility chase down killers such as Blight or Ghoul have a much easier time in the current system getting points for multiple chases, and even gen stall due to their ability to move around the map so quickly. Their micro game is strong, and that usually reflects in more points at the end of the match. I think a snowball system would reward killers that are mostly weaker in chase, but are able to make macro plays and decisions. Killers such as Trapper, Hag, Pig, Twins, etc. With so many different killer powers, a strong chase and macro aren't necessarily mutually exclusive, but can help when their power isn't fully based on it. This effect can also be toned down for those killers where quick injuries is so easy, such as Legion or Nurse. On the survivor side, you can compare having 2 to 3 survivors hooked and them being saved and healed in a short amount of time as a comeback. I'd also like to see endgame collapse plays being rewarded more. Honestly, I don't know all the intricacies of our pip system and what actions are rewarded in what way. I also don't know how it affects our MMR, which I honestly forgot is even in this game. On a match-by-match basis, the lack of a win condition or flaws in the pip system aren't things that are detrimental to the experience, but I do think it's something that should be evaluated more, especially 10 years in. Thirdly, the absence of a ranked mode highlights the lack of meaningful rewards you get when playing DBD, which I would say hurts replayability and the game's longevity. I want to clarify, if you find the gameplay loop of DBD fun, and you feel intrinsically rewarded for having fun and improving, then that's perfectly fine and I'm happy for you. I do believe there's value to that, and at the end of the day, video games are a pastime. If you don't enjoy or get fulfillment from it, then you shouldn't doom play. However, after a decade of the same gameplay loop, I do wish there was more to strive for and do in this game. If the pip system is flawed, and the reward for more pips is blood points, the blood points are only used for leveling characters, which initially grant you cooler stuff like the bloody cosmetics or those new profile pictures they added, but eventually as you work towards Bloodweb Prestige level 100, you only get more items, add-ons, and offerings that you already have hundreds of cluttering your inventory. Then what's the point? For me, once I get the bloody outfits and all the teachable perks on a character, I couldn't care less to level up. My reward of blood points is less of a reward and more of something to stockpile between chapters. How would I improve this system? There are a few examples of more meaningful rewards you can add. I would like these rewards to be gifted either through rank seasons or through leveling the blood web. Cosmetics would be an obvious but would be incredibly hard to retroactively add for the large cast of characters in DBD. I think collectible lore pages would be easy to implement, but would probably be a nothing burger to a lot of people. My ideal would be unique items and add-ons for killers, which may be a fun way to add on to the gameplay. For this to be meaningful, it would actually have to be something fresh and not just a number buff or status effect included. Things that can fundamentally change the way you play. Think, for example, if a Huntress Hatchet was able to ricochet like that one Trickster add-on, but you get fewer of them. I think as a rare bonus, behavior can also grant iridescent shards as a way to reward playing and maxing characters out. We already received someone leveling with XP, so why not include them as a rare reward so players can start acquiring non-licensed chapters and cosmetics. Also, it might be controversial, but I want a blood point market of sorts where you can sell items, add-ons, and offerings for a small fraction of the blood point price. This way we can get rid of the stockpile clutter and trade them for more useful, meaningful ones we actually use. So yeah, I think a ranked DBD mode would provide an opportunity to address or resolve some of the game's long-standing issues. And I didn't discuss it in detail here, but it can also allow behavior to properly balance aspects of the game when they're experienced at a higher level, instead of just looking at the general player base's unoptimized use. Also, map votes and pick and bans could be interesting, but let me know what you guys think down below. Is a ranked mode something you'd like to see in the game, or is it unneeded? I also know that they're adding a 1v1 mode, but I don't know if that's a complete substitute for a normal ranked mode. As always, thank you guys for watching, and thank you for the support on my last DBD video. It's much appreciated, especially for a small channel. But yeah, have a good day, guys.